Hello, everyone. Being that September is Suicide Prevention Month, for my informative speech, I chose to discuss suicide. Suicide is a tragic event with strong emotional repercussions for its survivors and for families of its victims. According to a 2010 study from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than 36,000 people in the U.S. kill themselves every year. It seems that most of the federally funded organizations are aimed towards helping teenagers. But in recent years, there has been a spike in rates among middle-aged people. Men seem to be especially at risk and have nearly 4 times the suicide rate as women. The one question everyone has asked, without exception, that they ache to have answered more than any other, is simply why. However, the majority of people who take their lives, which is estimated at 90%, were suffering with an underlying mental illness and substance abuse problem at the time of their death. They weren't sick, but their brains were. However, I personally believe there is one reason people feel suicide is the answer. They're depressed. This is without question the most common reason people commit suicide. Severe depression is always accompanied by a pervasive sense of suffering as well as the belief that escape from it is hopeless. The pain of existence often becomes too much for severely depressed people to bear. Often, people suffer with it silently, planning suicide without anyone ever knowing. A common question is, how do alcohol and drugs affect depression? According to SAVE, a suicide awareness site, alcohol is a depressant, so it can, and often does, make depression worse. Drug use alone or in combination with alcohol use for someone suffering with depression can be lethal. Too often, people attempt to alleviate the symptoms of depression by drinking or using drugs, which can increase the risk of suicide by impairing judgment and increasing impulsivity. When a family is affected by a suicide, many experience survivor guilt. According to Kathleen Nader, after someone dies and after traumatic events, survivor guilt may often occur because A. Individuals feel guilty for surviving or being uninjured when others were killed or injured. B. They were unable to rescue someone or had to leave someone dying in the disaster. Or C. It was not possible to overcome the bad guys. Survivors who went through the event may feel guilt because of a notion that bad things happen to people who survive, who deserve them, and or because of the fear that persuades us to blame the victim. Unfortunately, this past May, my family and I had to experience a suicide in our family. The hardest thing we have to live with is simply why.